Thank you so much for sharing that story. I know that it's hard to talk about these kinds of things, but your courage in telling us what you dealt with means the world to us. And that's why it's so important we get some answers to your questions. Let's get into those with Dr. Alicia Liggett, the founder and executive director of Empower Her Health, and Dr. Jennifer Conti, an adjunct clinical assistant professor of obstetrics and gynecology at Stanford. Good to have both of you with us, and I wonder if we might start with a voicemail from a viewer. Here is what Sylvia left in our inbox. Listen.
I hope that Roe versus Wade is not overturned, because a lot of women's lives would be in jeopardy if they have no other means of abortion. They would use hangers or do other things that are uncleanly to be able to do whatever it takes to survive.
Sylvia, thank you for sharing your concerns with us. Dr. Liggett, if I could start with you, how would you respond to Sylvia and her concerns about women doing what they feel they need to do to terminate their pregnancies?
Yes, well, the first thing I would say is, Sylvia, I see you, I hear you. I have many patients just like you who are frightened, who are scared, who are terrified that, robbing us of this right to choose and to have autonomy over our bodies and also over our families is extremely, it's frightening. I would also say that it's something that as a country, we really need to come together and decide what is most important to us. Is it important for us to really live out the ideals of democracy and protect those freedoms that we hold dear, which includes having autonomy over our bodies to make decisions for our families, or to reinstate systems of control where individuals then have to resort to dangerous measures in order to do what they feel they need to do to survive? When people feel that they're robbed of their basic needs of survival, which include the ability to freely choose whether they want to reproduce or not reproduce, people will feel this sense of urgency and this sense of frustration that they need to do what's necessary. And sometimes those things can be extremely dangerous.
And Dr. Liggett, that kind of gets to the next message we got about family support. Here is what Sherry had to say.
I totally feel like if it's me and my body, I have the right to make that choice. I chose not to do it. However, my daughter chose to do it, and I supported her, and I wouldn't change a thing.
Sherry, thank you for sharing your story with us. Dr. Liggett, talk about what you've seen in terms of the roles that families and sort of family, extended family communities play in terms of abortion services.
Yes, absolutely. I think this message really speaks to the very important point that this procedure is exceedingly common, that and also that it's a very polarizing issue. We know that nearly a quarter of all individuals will undergo this procedure at some point in their lifetime. And although we may not make that decision for ourselves, there's certainly, and the math really supports that. There's certainly individuals in our families, in our circles of friends and colleagues who will at some point undergo this procedure, who will choose to make that choice for their families. And so I think it really does speak to that point that it's something that's very personal, something that's very private, and often how people arrive at the decision to terminate a pregnancy is often one that's done in confidence with their families and with their doctors. And it should really remain that way. There are all sorts of reasons why people may choose to terminate a pregnancy, but it's really not up to our government, or really up to anyone for that matter, to decide who is deserving and who is undeserving of that right.
And Dr. Liggett, before we go, what's the one thing you wish more men knew about women's health?
Yeah, I think I wish more men really understood that this is really a human rights issue, that women's health is a human issue. And as human beings that have experiences in this country, that are citizens of this nation, and that are committed to ensuring and protecting the freedoms that our democracy affords us, everybody should care about this issue. Everybody should be completely enraged when we see erosions of our rights, of our precious democracy in this country. So I think, in terms specifically of women's health, Dr. Conti and also yourself said it perfectly, that men are also part of families. They're part of communities. They're part of the conversation. And although we as medical professionals sometimes don't do a great job of including them, it is important that they assert themselves, ask their questions, be a part of the conversation, come to doctor's visits with their loved ones, and be informed about what these issues really mean for their families.
Dr. Alicia Liggett of Empower Her Health and Dr. Jennifer Conti of Stanford, I appreciate you both answering our questions and responding to some of these stories tonight. Thank you both very, very much.